Today, let's do something different. I'm just going to react to this awesome video that Hussein Nasser just dropped called Does Discipline Work? I watched the first 2-3 minutes and looks amazing to me. So let's just go through it together.
We've often been told that if you're consistent and disciplined, you get result, which is, I think we can all agree on that. Back in 2000,
Not necessarily. I will say having that motivation and that drive works, but you need to have also like a little bit of technique to accomplish your goals. But okay, let's just move on.
2008, from a personal experience, I had basically, I think, 1,000 subscribers on your
Right.
YouTube channel, and I watched a video by someone called Roberto Break. It's like almost like a motivational video,
Right.
telling you that you have to be consistent and post every day, and then do that, and then that, and then I took that to heart, and I started just posting. Couldn't do it every day, but I was posting consistently. I was making videos.
I remember
and the
that.
moment
I remember that. So back on 2022, if you went to YouTube and look up like Postgres or TCP connection or Quick, you'll get Hussein every single time. So I think he produced a huge amount of quality videos that were well positioned in YouTube. And look, he grew his channel to like 450,000, 460,000. And I bet you, brother, that by the end of the month, you'll have 500,000. This is great.
had an idea, I would just post about it.
I
The
respect
moment
that.
I had some sort of a flash of an idea, I would just immediately act on it.
Nice.
You know? And it worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Got
because
a video.
yeah, it worked because you were good. I just don't want to get these. I don't want this to turn into a toxic message where people think that they can just start recording and everything will just work out. Like this guy was actually really good. So I'm just saying, yeah, there's volume, there's like consistency and all that, but you need to have good content. You need to have something to say.
Video and then one video, and after that, now I have a catalog of close to 1,000 videos. But why am I telling you
That's
this?
awesome.
The output and the result doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah,
It's just
it does matter, brother.
That's what matters. The consistency part of it.
Yeah, and the
Another
results.
example is,
In my opinion.
this is a little bit personal,
Okay.
but I gained a lot of weight in the
Okay.
past year. And I got some comments that I did not like.
Oh,
And eventually,
God.
I decided to
Look great. You look great, dude.
work on my health.
Nice.
And when I decided that, and only when I actually decided that, I started exercising every day. I couldn't do a single push-up, and then slowly work
Okay.
my way up. And then I did that, and I started walking, and I lost over, at my heaviest, I was 20 pounds. Now I'm at 178.
Wow. 40
I
pounds
lost
in 1
a
year.
lot of weight.
Good for you, brother.
So, and the reason I'm telling you all that is the
He's
daily
flexing.
consistency of
flexing.
things. Consistency and discipline works.
It
But
does.
what I didn't know is why does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Why is consistently quote unquote work?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What causes us to not be disciplined?
I think that what causes us to not be disciplined is because you engage in a new activity for a few days, you don't get a reward, or the reward that you don't get that unattainable reward that you put inside your brain for no reason, and then you get frustrated and you just drop the thing. And then you go back to playing freaking Call of Duty, where it's engineered. Call of Duty and all these games are engineered so that you get hooked as fast as possible, and they will continue to deliver those adrenaline shots and those endorphins, or have your body produce endorphins so that you stayed hooked to your game, as opposed to something like engineering where sometimes you don't get a reward immediately. Like if you're building a system or an application, sometimes it takes months to get it out and to start to get users. If you do get users, sometimes you just don't get shit.
That's a question that boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Because we know that it works. Well, then why don't we always do it?
Because the fear of failure That's what I blame it on.
Because you see, there's always cases where I want to do something and then I get either lazy or I find excuses.
Right.
And this happens daily basis, you know.
Uh-huh.
There's like always a reason for not doing something.
For
But
sure.
then when you act upon it
Yes.
without listening to those excuses, you get results.
Yes.
And that is the piece that I was missing. Until I watched, I read actually. Was it I read or watched? I read a quote by Naval. He said, "Inspiration is perishable. Act on it."
100%.
Then it all makes sense. It even made more sense. It kind of enforces the idea that doing something immediately when you get the blossom of the flower or the fruit,
I love it.
immediately act on it, and you
Get that fruit.
the result.
Get that fruit, brother.
But
Get that juice.
So we know that because if you don't act on it right then and then, it just disappears.
It will disappear.
It dies. It
You'll
perishes.
you'll overthink it and you'll say, this is probably a bad idea, when maybe it was a great idea.
It is spoiled.
Yep.
But then why? And I kept asking the questions. Why?
Fear.
Why?
Fear.
What is happening here? There is something deep. There is a first principle that we're missing. I'm missing. And I think I found it.
All right.
And
Preach,
I
brother.
think this is my favorite book of all time. I think
Okay.
if you ever want to read a book, this is the only book you need in life.
Okay.
Not a single other book. Everything
Bible.
else can be.
You see the Bible, brother.
Everything. You can find everything for yourself.
Okay.
This guy.
Atmamun. The path to achieving the bliss of the Himalayan Swamis and the freedom of a living God. All right.
I don't know. Hopefully, I'll do it in post. I really,
Atmamun.
this
Okay,
book
sorry.
deeply resonated with me. You know, I never have been a big fan of books in general because every
Really?
time I read something, I see this seems like something I can discover for
You're too
myself.
Smart. That's why.
Like all this, all the software engineering books I read, everything. I really just like, okay, whatever is this? I read this and I understand that either I read it before or I know about it or I can derive it myself. Everything in life.
Yeah, but that's what happens when you get a nice book. Of course, you are like capable of deriving it, but like, let me show you a book. Let me show you a book that I live by. Atomic. I'm afraid to open Amazon because you're going to see all the baby stuff. Because my wife is about to have a beautiful baby. But this is a book that I live by. And I swear by. So like, sure, many of these principles, I agree with you, dude. You can derive them over time, I guess. Where's the freaking overview? Well, anyways, this is a book that I recommend you to check out because, I mean, to Hussein's point, like, there are many things in this book that in theory you could derive yourself, but the fact that this dude put all this information together for you and came up with a list of habits that you can just follow, like, I don't know, let's say atomic habits, make it obvious. So he came up with a list of habits that you can just consume and exercise. Why not doing it? It will take you years to come up with this stuff. I'd rather consuming the information in a book. So it's like you are getting someone's experience, like a few years of experience, and consuming it in a few hours, on a few days, depending how fast you read this stuff. So like, this book is all about how to create new habits, and he tells you all the principles and make it obvious and make it fulfilling. Let's see if there's like a list. Now I need to give you the overview, right? Let's see. Blah blah blah. Make it. Oh, come on. Give me the. Now I need the. Make it. Easy. Yeah, so he breaks it into a bunch of rules. Atomic Habits Summary. Yeah, these stuff. This is what I'm talking about. Sure, you can come up with this on your own, dude, but like this is the James Clear life project, like he took some time to compile all this stuff. So why trying to figure it out on your own when you can get a nice book? But anyways,
except this one. Yeah,
except this one.
This
okay.
is deeply
right.
intricate to human psyche. Like, how do we work? And this idea of the mind and thoughts. I didn't even realize that I had this constant chatter of the thing that's called the mind.
I hear you, brother.
Thoughts.
We do.
It is always running.
Always.
And the reason discipline works and the reason consistency work is that there is this initial thing that gets triggered, and it's your heart, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
That's your inner self. And then it quickly gets overwhelmed by the majesty of the mind and its thoughts, and it just get drawn. That's why inspiration becomes perishable. Inspiration comes from the heart. If you have an idea and acting of it quickly before
the mind
floods you with thoughts,
fuck the mind.
You won.
But
if
mindless.
you start entertaining these thoughts,
you'll
find
so
excuses. So the reason inspiration is perishable is because the mind is, if you will, the bacteria or the flesh-eating, virus. That's the problem. The mind is really a clever thing, and you can never beat it.
Right.
At all. You cannot engage with it. You can let it do its thing, and then understand that it's doing its own thing.
Yeah.
And then just ignore it.
Love that.
No? And then just move on by doing your own thing. Because if you entertain it, you listen to it. And if you listen to it,
lose.
You stop. And if
That's
you
right.
stop, then you get frustrated. The problem, if you think about results and, if I just do it right now, if you listen to me right now, it's like, you know what? The next time I do this, I'll just do it and I'll immediately get the results. That doesn't work like that, because that also is another mind game.
Yeah, delaying the thing.
The mind will say, yeah, you know what? You should just go ahead and do it, because if you do it this way, then you will get the result. And if you don't get the result, then this idea is wrong, and you'll find it by yourself.
Right.
And that's just another.
Yeah, maybe their idea was it was fine, but
puts you back.
Probably it was your execution, right? Maybe the idea was fine, but sometimes it's all about execution, the quality of execution.
Into itself.
Right.
And it's clever. It will find all sorts of ways to find it.
To slow you
that's
down.
Why discipline is so important, but at the same time, it's been this word has been polluted, right? Because it's been overused in media and motivational videos that, you have to be disciplined.
You need to wake up at 4 a.m.
and walk up at this time at the
4 a.m.
do this and it becomes like something
toxic.
You have to follow, but that is not the case. It's not. Discipline itself is not a goal, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a part of the journey to get you somewhere. And the somewhere is whatever the heart desire, the original, the original thing that you have, which is
like your goal or your motivation.
What that looks like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
I know, man, brother. So I'll never forget. So I was like 8 years old. I was riding on the back of Dodge Spirit. For those that here in the States, Dodge Spirit's piece of crap car. So I was riding on the back, no car seat, because those were the 90s, so nobody cared. And my parents were talking and arguing and stuff, and I didn't quite understand what they were talking about. But that's when, like, it's one of those moments when you're like, you snap into conscience, into conscience, right? You snap into conscience. And what happened is that they were talking about foreclosure. They literally had to default. They defaulted on their loan, and they were waiting for the bank to go take their house. That's what happened. And it's not that. It's not the banks did something very dirty in the 90s, which is they gave you a mortgage with a variable interest rate. So you thought you were paying off your mortgage when in reality you were barely covering the interest on the mortgage. So then there was this huge crash in the market where all the variable interest mortgages got like not refinanced, adjusted to the new market conditions, and everyone got creamed, man. It was horrible. So long story short, I remember riding that like Dutch Spirit and then snapping into conscience and saying, I don't ever want to be in this situation ever again. So I'm not sure if it was like a clear goal, but it was a feeling to say, I never want to feel the scarcity and the fear of not having where to live ever again. And I was like 8 years old, man. I don't know. I think if I was to think about a time where I decided how I wanted to live my life, it's probably that day.
Upon it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm on this journey to differentiate between my original self, you know, and then these thoughts. And boy, it's really hard to find out, because sometimes thoughts come to you and you don't know these are even thoughts.
Right.
You just drown into them, and then too late you're already, drowned. But that is just, it's just interesting. So
It is.
I don't know what my purpose of this video is, but I think I found one other truth.
Well, it resonated with me, I'll tell you that. You got me to record this.
There's always a voice inside us that gets immediately, the moment it utters something, it gets immediately flooded by thoughts, and it gets submerged, and we can't hear it anymore.
Right.
And putting our hands and arms into the deep waters and pulling that voice out is, I think, the goal of all human beings, to listen to this original one.
Yes.
Original voice.
Yeah.
And that's us, basically.
100%. And that reminds me of the midwheat meme. So usually in the midwheat meme, you always have the idiot, the genius, and the Jedi. And usually the genius and the Jedi disagree, while the moron and the Jedi always agree. So if it's good, I do it. I love the simplicity of this. If it's good, I do it. And then the genius will like overthink it. No, you have to have complex reasons for what you're doing. What is the point? What is your goal? That's the complex, like the mind taking over. While the Jedi says, yeah, just do it. So, all in all, this was a fantastic video, and I'm planning to just ramp up my video creation again. I was a little bit busy with some wonderful projects that I had with my friend Seth, but we wrapped up that stuff. So now I'm back in the game, and I think I'm going to make Fun Fridays where I'll just post about like self-improvement and stuff. So yeah, catch you in the next one. Bye.